Hey everyone, so you know how LangChain completely changed the game for building with AI? It was huge. But let's be real, for the really complex stuff, they kind of hit a wall. Well, today we're digging into what comes next, LangGraph. We're going to see how we're shifting from these simple, step-by-step AI instructions to basically giving our apps a brain that can actually think, plan, and adapt. Okay, so let's just start with the main problem, right? You've probably felt this yourself. A lot of AI tools are fantastic for one-off tasks. You ask a question, you get an answer. Boom, done. But what happens when a problem isn't that simple? What if it needs to make a decision or try something, fail, and then try again? That's exactly where these simple, straight-line workflows just break. And that brings us to this perfect analogy, the AI assembly line. It's such a good way to picture most AI workflows. Everything moves in one direction, step by step. But, the real world is messy. It's not a clean production line. And an assembly line just isn't built for that kind of chaos. I mean, just think about the difference. You've got a simple sequence. Step one, then step two, and you're finished. Perfect for a quick summary. But then you have a real problem. You start, you hit a decision point, maybe you loop back to try something again, you rethink your approach, and then you finish. That's a flowchart, not a straight line. The old assembly line model just completely falls apart there. So what are the actual limits we're talking about? Well, for one, these linear paths can't loop or fix their own mistakes. They really struggle with basic if this, then that logic. They forget what happened just a few steps ago, which is a huge problem. And trying to get multiple AI agents to work together on a single task, it becomes a total nightmare. This is the wall developers were hitting again and again. So what's the solution? How do we break past that wall? Well, the brilliant minds behind LangChain came up with the answer. And this is where we get to introduce LangGraph. It's a framework built from the ground up to let AI applications think in circles, to have memory, and to handle real complexity. And that's really the big mental shift here. We're moving away from the rigid, one-way street of an assembly line, and we're embracing the smart, flexible, branching paths of a flowchart. This isn't just a minor update, you guys. This is a totally different way of thinking about how to build AI systems. So, what is LangGraph officially? Well, it's a framework for building your AI apps as graphs. And the two magic words you need to remember are stateful and graphs. Stateful means it has a memory. It remembers what it's done. And graphs means it's not stuck on a straight line. It can have loops, branches, and cycles. It's what lets an AI actually reason its way through a problem. Okay, so we get the what, but how does this thing actually, work? Let's get into it and break down the three core ideas that really give LangGraph its power. So, the first big concept is something called a state machine. Now, I know that sounds super technical, but the analogy here is just perfect. Think about a character in a video game. That character can be in different states, right? They can be idle or walking or jumping. And your controller inputs, pressing A to jump, are the rules that switch them between those states. LangGraph does that exact same thing, but for an AI workflow. Next up, you've got nodes and edges. These are literally the building blocks of that flowchart we were talking about. A node is just an action. It's a little box that says, search the web or call this AI model. And an edge, that's just the arrow connecting the boxes. It's the path that tells the AI, okay, after you do this, you're going to go do that. You're literally drawing out the AI's thought process. And finally, we have the absolute secret sauce, stateful execution. This is the memory. This is what solves one of the single biggest problems with older AI workflows. See, without state, an AI is kind of like a person with no short-term memory. It could search the web for an answer, but then in the very next step, completely forget what it just found. LangGraph fixes this. It keeps track of everything it's learned and everything that's happened, which is what lets it perform true multi-step reasoning. All right, so that's all the theory, but let's get practical. When should you actually reach for a tool like LangGraph? I mean, it's really powerful, but it's definitely not for everything. So let's talk about when to use it, and just as important, when not to. You're going to want to pull out LangGraph for your really heavy-duty tasks. We're talking about complex workflows with a ton of if this, then that decision points. It's perfect for building those advanced AI agents that need to plan their own steps and adapt on the fly. And if you need a task to loop or iterate or even correct its own mistakes, LangGraph is your tool. It's also a game changer for getting multiple agents to cooperate. But look, sometimes simpler is just better. If your workflow is basically a straight line from A to B to C, just stick with regular LangChain. It's easier, it's faster. If you're just getting started with AI development or your task just doesn't need all this fancy logic, LangGraph is probably overkill. For quick prototypes, simplicity is king. So where does LangGraph actually fit into the bigger picture? Well, think of it like this. LangChain is your all-around general-purpose tool for most AI apps. Crew AI is fantastic, but it's really specialized for making multiple AI agents work together as a team. But LangGraph, that's for when you need maximum power and absolute control over a really complex custom workflow. And of course, with great power comes a bit of a steeper learning curve.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a minute here. This isn't really just about one new cool tool. This whole shift toward graph-based thinking, it says something much bigger about where AI development is headed.
And here's the bottom line. As the jobs we give to AI get more and more ambitious, the simple linear models we started with just aren't going to cut it. These new architectures, like LangGraph, the ones that allow for reasoning, memory, and adaptation, they're becoming absolutely essential. This is the blueprint for the next generation of AI.
Which, of course, brings us right back to our main analogy, because it just sums it up so perfectly. We are moving beyond just manufacturing simple answers on an assembly line. We are now actually building systems that have a structure much more like a brain that can plan, react, and even learn, all within a single task.
So I guess I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. We're now giving AI the ability to follow these incredibly complex flowcharts, to loop, to reason, and to try again when things go wrong. So the question we have to ask is, are these advanced flowcharts the blueprint we've been searching for to build the very first, truly autonomous agents?